Hey there, my name is Cole Adams, and you are watching the best college basketball podcast out there that covers the entire sport of college basketball, brackets, bubbles, and bid stealers. Now, here are your hosts, Sam Fetterman and Jonathan Lidskin.
Season 6, Episode 4 of Brackets, Bubbles, and Bid Stealers. Okay, the music turned off. I am Sam Fetterman. Jonathan Lidskin is going to be here in a moment, and he's really slacking off at the moment. Wasn't on the last pod at all. Late for this next pod, but we're fine. We've got Isaac Trotter. We got Isaac Trotter with us right here. We're going to talk all about the transfer portal. Isaac, thank you so much for coming on.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Well, there we go. Hold on. There he is.
Hey guys,
what's going on?
All right. We just started, so you're not missing anything.
Awesome.
So the first question I wanted to ask for both of you guys, which power conference team had the best transfer portal? That can include retaining players, adding players, getting guys back from the draft that we thought were going to leave. Which team had the best 2 months in terms of players and their roster?
Boy, that's a nuanced question there. I think, I like what Florida has done, to be honest, for the most part. That's pretty newsworthy today with what Boogie Fland coming off the board. But I kind of like the idea of what their roster has starting to look like with Xavier Lee and Boogie Fland. The idea of pairing two guards off the bounce that really make pull-up jumpers. And that's one thing I was looking at with transfer portal scouting, like the hit rate of guys that really hit at a high level, were a lot of them were like pull-up jump shooters. Like Chaz Lanier hit a bunch of off-the-dribble threes a couple years ago, transfers up and dominates. Jameer Brickus hits a ton of off-the-dribble threes, transfers up to Villanova and has a really nice year. So I think that I can go down the list. I did all this research on it, but I think the idea of Todd Golden of pairing those two together makes a lot of sense to me, especially with the idea of they're going to play Tommy Hauck at the 3. If they get Alex Condon back, he could play the 4, Ruben Chignello at the 5. They've done a good job with retention. I like the idea of if paying Boogie Fland about the same number that they would have paid Denzel Aberdeen. I'm an AJ Brown guy. We'll see if he can really work his way into that rotation because the transfer from Ohio. But I like the mix. I really like the mix, and they've done a really nice job of roster building around, the strengths of their roster, which is probably going to play 3 bigs and insert Micah Handlocked in 2.
Yeah, I agree with you on Florida. I wasn't really seeing it, but now when you get Boogie Fland in there, I see it a lot more. I'm not 100% sure what Xavier Lee's going to give you defensively. I think Fland is definitely going to give you a little bit more. He's not a great defender, but he'll give you something. The backcourt defense is a little bit of a concern. I'm not expecting Florida to be national championship level good from day one next year, but I will expect them to be national championship level good by the end of the year. I think they'll figure it out. I don't expect them to win the national championship next year. I think that I would be surprised if they do, but I do think the Gators put together a good roster. And the fact of the matter is when you have that front court coming back with Tommy Hauck, Alex Condon, presumably, Ruben Chignello, who I've been big on since Washington State, you're looking at just guys that have experience winning a national championship and can give you a lot of energy, and more than just energy, they're awesome defensively. I think that's 3 guys that can all play in the NBA at some point in your front court. So I think that Florida has done a good job given the fact that they lost their 3 guards.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add there. Those 2 guards that they've added can both really score, and the front court that they have coming back should already be one of the best in the country. I legit think that Tommy Hauck might be a top 10 pick next year. I would have drafted him pretty high this year, but another year of development can only help him.
All right, the next thing I wanted to get into. I want to move away from. I want to stay in the SEC here because Kentucky was a team that got a lot of press during this transfer portal cycle. So how do we think Mark Pope did in the portal? You bring in Jalen Lowe, Denzel Aberdeen, Diabate, Cam Williams. But and obviously Jaden Quaintance, who's hurt for now. I think a lot of this honestly rests on when you're getting Jaden Quaintance back and whether you're getting the full Jaden Quaintance experience. Isaac, do you agree?
Sort of. I think they've also built up their roster where they're not necessarily needing Quaintance to come in and be ready to go on opening night. But if he is, that would be a real luxury, right? They have real depth there. Brandon Garrison isn't a guy I'm super, in love with, but I think he can be a serviceable rotation piece for a little bit. Malachi Moreno, the recruiting guys really, really like his upside. We'll see how quickly he is ready to play early. So they also have Reese Potter as well. So they have some depth there built up if Quaintance not ready. But, I think my first overall takeaway with this Kentucky roster is this roster looks completely different than last year's team. Last year's team I thought was like got to score in transition, a very much of a let the system create open shots for us type of deal. Like they weren't super athletic at multiple spots. This year's roster is way twitchier, way more explosive. I think Jalen Lowe, they're going to put him in a better situation to be really effective. If they get Otega Owe back, you add Mo Diabate, you add Denzel Aberdeen, you have a rim protector in Quaintance when he gets healthy, that Kentucky defense should be much improved. So, I feel like I look at this roster and it's like instead of a lot of catch and shoot 3-point shooting and being old, they have a lot more twitchy, athletic, SEC type of caliber athletes. And I think I'm very fascinated to see kind of how Mark Pope melds this all together.
Jonathan?
Yeah, I agree there. I think that Quaintance kind of raises their ceiling for sure. But the other players that they brought in, I'm a fan. Denzel Aberdeen probably would have been a really good player for 95% of other power conference schools last year. He was kind of log jammed in a loaded backcourt at Florida, and now he'll get the chance to not only improve with that system that I think is good for him, but he's talented as well. And then kind of like Isaac said, you add it in the front court with Reese Potter, and you have guys there that can kind of fill the role when Quaintance is gone if he's not ready right away. I also really like the Muhammad Diabate addition. I think he did a lot of good things at Bama. Is a really good two-way player. I just like Mark Pope can put together one of the few guys that I kind of trust to put together a good team no matter who he brings in. Even if it looks weird, and I don't think this looks weird. Like Jalen Lowe will do some really good things for them. I thought he was kind of stuck in a bad system for his game at Pitt, and the floor spacing that they will have will much help him.
Yeah, I look at Jalen Lowe, operated out of someone. I think they led the country in ball screens last year or something like that. That was just the only way that they had to create offense because they didn't really have wings that did much. They didn't really have bigs that did much in terms of that. I think taking a little bit of a load off of him, but still letting him operate out of a lot of ball screens. Mark Pope I mentioned this to Isaac a couple weeks ago, that Mark Pope has used ball screens a lot more than he did last year in the past, especially when he had Alex Barcelo at BYU. So I do think we'll see a lot more ball screens out of Kentucky, a lot more dribble drive creation out of Kentucky this year versus last year where, again, it was kind of they had to move a lot off the ball and find cutters and have Jackson Robinson spawn open on the wing with 7 seconds left on the shot clock. But I think this year they'll be a lot more equipped to run some more ball screens, but they'll also have the ability to find slashers. They have multiple slashers on this team this year that they didn't have last year. That'll help Jalen Lowe out a lot.
I think they can do a lot of those. They run this Chicago action a lot. Those pin downs into dribble handoffs. I like the idea of Lowe getting off that to his left hand and getting downhill. He screams like an efficiency bump there to me. I think, when you look at the quality of look that he's going to get at Kentucky compared to Pitt, I think it's going to be wildly different. And, I'm also using history there too. Lamont Butler transfers into Kentucky, has the best offensive season of his life. Otega Owe transfers into Kentucky, has the best offensive season of his life. I just don't think that's a coincidence. And Lowe has some issues with his game. He's got to clean up his decision-making. He's got to figure out the shot decisions. Sometimes I feel like he took some bad ones and passed some good ones up. if he can figure out his shot decisions a little bit more this year and play off the ball a little bit more, I could talk myself into him being one of the best guards in the SEC next year.
All right. Before we leave the SEC, I do want to talk about a team that I think just hasn't been talked about enough. A team that I'm really, really excited about for next year. Jonathan, I think you know where I'm going with this.
Do I?
I'm talking about Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
I'm talking about Vanderbilt, who might have the most underrated returning player in the country in Devin McLaughlin right now. Brings in a legit, like, high major-ish big in Jalen Washington that will make it so McLaughlin doesn't have to play at the 5. There's size with Tyler Harris and Tyler Nickel. Tyler Tanner is back. Frankie Collins comes in. I don't know how much I trust Frankie Collins, but I trust Tyler Tanner. And then Duke Miles, who's going to come in and shoot. And then A.K.O. Karake, who I'm a big fan of. There's just a lot to like on this Vanderbilt team with what Mark Byington did last year. I think the trajectory is upward as long as you have McLaughlin, which is just this one more year. I think Vanderbilt is going to be a competitive, maybe not top contender, but second-tier contender in the SEC.
They look like a tournament team, right? Like, this looks like every bit like a tournament team. Again, they're deep. They have 2 usable players, I think, at all 5 positions. So, like, I think that they're going to play 10 guys rather comfortably. You know, I think the pressure that they can play is going to be really evident. Tyler Tanner is going to get up in you for 94 feet. Frankie Collins has his flaws, but he is going to get up in you for 94 feet. You know, and I like the mix too. Like, Collins is a paint touch guard. You pair him with Duke Miles, who can really shoot it from 3, and Tyler Harris, who really shoots it from 3, and Tyler Nickel, who really shoots it from 3. Like, you're kind of, I thought that their roster build last year was really, really smart on paper. I just didn't trust the overall talent as much as I did in the preseason, and they outplayed preseason expectations. This year, I think we kind of all understand that Mark Byington is really good at this roster building stuff, and you're starting to see that again this year with this build. Okereke, like you mentioned, is awesome, but if he's playing behind McLaughlin, it's just like, good God, 40 minutes of one of those 2 guys on the floor is going to be a first world problem for a lot of teams.
I want to see them, like, you can play McLaughlin at the 5 for 10 minutes a game, play McLaughlin and Okereke together, and man, that would be such a fun lineup to look at.
Yeah, I think they have so many possibilities with the guard rotation here. And yeah, A.K.O. Karake is a very good player. Like kind of like you said, Sam does everything. He, I think, is the best player in this transfer class for Vandy. But, you know, like, with these guards, you have, you know, guys that kind of pressure the ball with Collins and Tyler Tanner, and then Duke Miles can really score. And, you know, we'll see what we get out of Tyler Harris, who was kind of that high upside player at Portland before he transferred. And, you know, this is Mark Byington does a really good job of building rosters, and they just have what I feel like are so many underrated pieces that, like, oh, hey, like, they didn't put up the huge scoring numbers that are going to get a ton of attention from a ton of collective people, but they have so many pieces that I think will work together. And yeah, this should be a tournament team once again.
All right. Anything else in the SEC you guys want to touch on before we go?
I can give you some quick hitter stuff. I think Texas A&M has done a pretty smart job with the roster building of, like, pairing Marcus Hill, who is a guy who really gets to the rim at a high level, with Jakari Lane, who shoots a ton of threes, Rylan Griffin, who shoots a ton of threes, McBako, getting to play him at the 4. I think you might be able to see the best version of him. So overall, you know, what?
Finally.
Yeah, no, overall, like, you know, it's not a talent roster that will blow you away talent-wise, but I think the individual, like, decision making of, like, what type of archetype to pair together makes sense. Oklahoma, good work. I think that the portal haul makes sense there too. AJ Store to Ole Miss, I think that's probably the first good decision he's made in a minute. And then, yeah, like that, I think that's my overarching SEC thoughts. Like, because I feel like, you know, with Auburn, it's like I like the transfers that they've gotten, but it feels incomplete to really grade that team when you don't know what Todd Pettiford's going to do yet.
Agreed. I like Arkansas. Like, Jonathan's going to call me crazy. He doesn't like Arkansas, but I like Arkansas.
What are you talking about?
You told me you didn't like Arkansas.
They just don't have shooters. Like,
I like this team.
I think that they still have a nice floor, though.
I like this team. Yeah.
I will say this on Arkansas. I think that I think Nick Pringle is going to play more than Malik Ewan. I am not a Malik Ewan fan.
I like both of them. I like Pringle a lot at Alabama, but I think Ewan can play.
Ewan's good offensively, but he cannot guard in space. Arkansas did a lot of switching last year with their bigs, asking their bigs to guard in space. That is not a strength of his game. He will definitely help them offensively if they throw him the basketball. But Nick Pringle, I think, is a way better scheme fit for what they're wanting to do defensively with their bigs, and especially guarding in space.
I like pairing Anthony Robinson with Sebastian Mack. I just think that front court, aside from Mark Mitchell, is I don't know, Jonathan. Find a word. And then
interesting.
South Carolina. The only get there that I liked was Kapich. Michi Johnson, Mike Sharp Johnson, Krista Sandico are like big three.
Michi's had success.
Years.
Michi's had success there, so like I don't.
Yeah, but I've been hating on him. I don't think he's all that good.
No, like
Tawan Cooper was the driver of that team.
I guess my one takeaway that we really didn't mention is LSU very much feels like a roster that
yes,
like they had money for the first time and like felt like they needed to do something with it.
It's a TikTok roster.
Like I don't know how Jaden Thomas scales up.
Unless this Ron Zipper guy is like actually really good. I haven't watched this film yet. Like, yeah, total TikTok roster. Moving on. Big 12. Let's talk a little bit about it. I think the place to start is obviously BYU. AJ DeBonsta comes in. They also bring in Rob Wright, Kennard Davis, Keba Keita is back, Richie Saunders is back. Do we think BYU maximized what they have roster-wise with their secondary pieces?
I'm probably the wrong person to ask about this because I love Kennard Davis. I think Kennard Davis is a complete stud. And I think he is a guy that we have to talk about him differently because his role at BYU is going to be so different than what it was at Southern Illinois.
Yeah.
And I think defensively, when he has a smaller offensive role, he is going to be a demon on that end. And you can throw me the defensive BPM stuff. You can say all of those things. You've got to watch the tape with him, and you got to watch the games when he's not that primary offensive option. He really can guard. And so I think defensively, he's a good fit for what they wanted as a 3-and-D type of option who can also create his own shot. He's another one of those guys that can hit pull-up jumpers, and I think that's a translatable thing that Stavs are looking at for transfer up candidates from the mid-major ranks. So, yeah, you can poke some holes in the rest of this, some of the supporting pieces that BYU has added, but you know, they were looking for role players at the end of the day, and they also needed to find a paint touch guard, and they got maybe the best one in the portal in Rob Wright. Like, no one will touch the paint better than Rob Wright, and that's kind of exactly what they needed, and they really didn't have last year.
I agree. I think BYU probably did enough to be a top 10 team with the core four of DeBonsta, Saunders, Wright, Keba Keita. Again, like we'll see with Davis. You like him a lot. They brought in some shooters late, I believe, and Pickens and Roos, Baker. I still think there's a little bit there that they can get. I'm a little concerned about not having a second big man because we know Jonathan and I do not think very highly of Xavier Staten. So I don't really think
that's one way to put it.
I don't think they have a second big man the way that they have had for the past few years. Obviously, Fosh Traore would not even close to fit with this team. Like, I'm pretty sure if you put Fosh Traore on this team, it would be the worst fit in the country. But I would have hoped for another big man, maybe like a 6'10" guy who's actually decent.
I think Boscovich can help them though.
Yeah,
I liked him a little bit last year. You know, I think he's closer to a 4, but they could play some small ball 5 there. You know, I also think like the defensive personnel is a little bit better because like Trevin Nell is one of the worst defenders last year. Like when you watch games, like he could not really stay in front of literally anybody. They almost had to like hide him like crazy. You know, Dallin Hall, I wasn't blown away with his point of attack defense as well. So Mott Mag's obviously a big loss, and that's, defensively. But I do think that not having Nell in the rotation and not having Hall in the rotation makes me think that there's an athleticism bump that this group could have that last year's team just didn't, frankly, have at the point of attack.
AJ also has the tools to be a really high level defender.
Big time.
Yeah, that a lot will come down to how seriously he takes himself on that end. I have some serious character concerns with AJ, to put it lightly.
I wouldn't even call them character concerns. It's just
yeah, because it's nothing. It's nothing that you can actually point to. There's no criminal record. There's no
No, he doesn't have any off the court issues.
The way he carries himself. The way he carries himself is fascinating.
It's just how much his dad was involved with his recruitment, how many different high schools he played at. It's stuff like that. Yeah.
All right. Moving on from BYU, I do want to talk a little bit about Kansas. I like Jaden Dawson. I like Melvin Council. I think that it's a great fit for those two guys with Darren Peterson, as that's three guys that do completely different things. Dawson as a shooter, Council as a slasher. I think moving him off the ball in a slashing role will also make him a little bit more effective as a shooter. He was shooting too many at St. Bonaventure because he had to be a point guard for them. And then Peterson, obviously a bigger lead guard, more lead guard than true point guard, but can create, score in all places, and the ability, and not the ability, but being able to bring back Flory Badunga resets the ceiling and the floor for this group as well.
Definitely need another piece, but I'm with you. Getting Flory back is as big of a transfer portal, quote unquote, move as a lot of pieces here in this cycle. He's a big deal for them, and obviously DP is special. I think he's going to come in and be ready to rock and roll from the beginning. Darian Williams is obviously a huge target for them as a potential, 15 points a game guy that you could walking 15, 5, and 5 is how I've called him. If he could play the 3 or the 4, that makes sense. But I think the overarching theme that I look at with Kansas's portal additions is just adding role players who want to be role players. And I think that's something that the past few rosters didn't necessarily have. And all three of these guys, I think are old. They played a lot of high major basketball or college basketball, and then they can guard. And I think that defense, being a role player, buying into a smaller usage rate, surrounding, Darren Peterson and Flory Badunga makes a lot of sense. They're a little small. I think that would be one thing I'd put at. They really only have 2 guys over 6'9" on the roster right now. That's a little bit weird. But yeah, overall, good stuff from Kansas. I think Kansas is going to be really, really good this year.
Jonathan?
Yeah, this roster should, in theory, be better than the last couple ones. Obviously, the 2024 team wasn't even that bad before the Kevin McCullough injury stuff. But in terms of fit, you have Darren Peterson, who's obviously going to be probably one of the best players in the country next year. And in terms of play driving, I'm not sure how many guys in college basketball will be better than him. And then just you got guys that fill a specific need. Jaden Dawson can come in and knock down shots for you. It's not something that they had last year, just in terms of a connective piece. And then Darren Williams, I just think is probably the piece that puts this all together in terms of another true score 15 points a game efficiently option. And Trey White kind of can do some dirty work inside for you. That's a little bit of what he did at Illinois. And then having a guard like Melvin Council off the bench, probably not something that Kansas really has had in the last couple of years.
And they just have NBA players again. That matters. They didn't. No Kansas player was at the NBA draft combine this year. That was really stunning. So this year you get NBA players again, and I think
you got Peterson and Badunga both going to be NBA players. If they get Darian Williams, there's a guy who was at the combine this year. So, what else do we want to get into with the Big 12? I know Texas Tech made some big moves. West Virginia has a whole new roster. Kansas State, we can kind of do we want to riff on Kansas State right now, or are we going to let that go for the Big 12 preview?
Kansas State feels just like such a big, like I still don't really know what this team is yet.
Yes.
The bigs are still a major question right now. Is Tyreek Smith going to be able to play all of, what's the plan there? I'm not the biggest Abdi Bashir guy. I think that he scares me a little bit with his transfer up case, just because I don't know if he can guard, and I don't really.
At this point, I don't know if anyone is an Abdi Bashir guy.
But if you were putting somebody in a lab to like pair with him, I think Nate Johnson would make sense, right? Like, I think that actually makes a little bit more sense of just like that big, strong, physical paint touch guard that can create shots. So yeah, I it's going to probably come down to Andre Kostic, the international product that they brought in. Like, how good is he ready to play right away? But you're right, this roster in the Big 12, which is very, very top heavy, this roster just doesn't feel like it has the same oomph. Oh, sorry. Also, I didn't understand running off Brendan Housen to pay Abdi Bashir. That's my last point.
No, not at all. Housen's better. Any quick hits on anyone in this league, Jonathan?
Very confused by what Baylor has done. Like, are they just going to kind of put together a group of guards that does not defend for eternity at this point?
So here's my pitch on Baylor.
What'd you say?
Here's my pitch on Baylor. I think they're sneaky big. Like, I think they're going to play Obi Agbeam at the 1, but Skillings is 6'6". Tonde that's coming in, the freshman, is 6'5". Cam Carr could mix in there, 6'6". Michael Ratai, 6'9". Got a shot blocker in the back end, and Justin Bodo at 7 foot. Like, they're way bigger than what they were last year. And so I wonder if that like big switchability defensively, we could start to see maybe a bit of a jump there.
Switchability with Bodo, who's never played anything outside of drop.
I was more saying like at the 2, 3, and 4. Like, but that's a great point. That's totally. I think you're right. Like, they're mostly going to play drop. They're going to stay out of rotation, but they do have like that ability to. I think like, Skillings is having trouble guarding somebody. We'll move things around. Cam Carr.
Yeah, I think Tunde is going to be an awesome defender.
Yeah,
Tunde can guard.
But I don't think Obi defends. I don't think JJ White defends, and I don't think Michael Ratai defends.
Correct. I like Ratai a little bit more defensively than you, but I understand what you're saying. Like, Obi last year at Wyoming, they dorked a lot of teams, and Obi was the guy that was kind of roaming at all times and wasn't in that mix. I think you have to save him as much as you can defensively, because I don't see a lot of guys on this roster that go get one off the bounce, and Obi's going to have a massive role for them offensively. So, yeah, I agree with you, though. Obi and JJ White cannot be on the floor together at the same time.
No chance. And then what else did I want to get into?
Iowa State's done some interesting stuff.
Yeah,
like, interesting in terms of like whoa, like, I don't know if these players can play at this level, but it's TJ Otzelberger, so he'll make it work.
There was this thing early in the offseason where it was like they were losing like decent like role players that like I was surprised they were losing. And I turned to Jonathan and I was like, is this when Hurley shed the entire 2022 roster? It's not. It's not. He didn't upgrade all that much, but I love the Dom Nelson and Blake Buchanan pickups. So I think this is a really good starting 5. It's just after that, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what they're looking at. I think they could be looking at a jump for Milan Momcilovic. I think Josh Jefferson is going to be one of the best players in the Big 12. But yeah, Iowa State probably not as good as last year. Losing Curtis Jones hurts. I thought they were going to be able to bring him back with the JUCO ruling.
Yeah, I think
like the Mason Williams edition feels very much like, oh, hey, we're going to try to. This is our new Curtis Jones.
Agreed. And I think Dom Nelson is like what they kind of view as like their Keyshawn Gilbert type of replacement of like a really good defender who can get to the rim too. So yeah, we'll see. I'm with you guys. I don't think this is a top 10 team anymore. I think that was like the expectation for them last couple of years. This doesn't look like a top 10 roster, but I think they're solid. I think they're a top 25 type of caliber team. I think they're certainly a no doubt NCAA tournament caliber team. And, honestly, the portal additions, Buchanan, smart. Eric Mulder is smart too. I think he's going to be a serviceable big off the bench. Williams and Nelson, I think they complement Taman Lipsey really well. But at the end of the day, their biggest move is keeping Josh Jefferson out of the portal because he had serious offers.
Yeah, I don't.
If I were running a program that have unlimited money, the first player I would call in the portal, I think, would be Josh Jefferson. Like, not even in the portal. The first player I'd tamper with would probably be Josh Jefferson.
I think that him
in any system.
There's going to be a drop off here, but I don't think it's I don't think they're going to be 2023 level Iowa State.
Agreed.
That team by the end of the year was bad.
Right.
Well, yeah, they didn't have Caleb Grill, the latest happenings.
Yes.
But
I will say this though, I think that this cycle in the Big 12 kind of shows how good Otzelberger is at really honing in on the exact archetype that he wants with his bigs and stuff and with his guards and what he wants. And I kind of feel the same way about Texas Tech. They're really, really good at roster building, and you start to see the mix of what they like. And Lawan Watts, I think, is almost pound for pound a Darian Williams type of replacement.
I love Lawan Watts.
I think he's awesome. I think he's awesome. And I think he's going to be great for them as a booty ball threat for them. They can post him up on either side of the floor, draw two, find shooters. Tyree Bryan has
great passer.
Yeah, great passer. And I think he's going to get even better at passing as as he gets stronger and as he gets to work with that coaching staff. And then you mix it with Tyree Bryan, who can shoot the cover off of it and catch and shoot situations. Donovan Atwell, same type of deal. Elite catch and shoot guy. Toppin, getting him back is obviously huge. And then Bamboy, holy crap. I like Federico as a role player, but I think Bamboy is better and has a higher ceiling.
Yeah.
And again, you kind of look at this mix. Maybe they don't have one. Then maybe they're a ball handler short. Maybe that's that Ben Henschel type of spot. But, they can play big. They can play small. And that type of roster versatility is just a cheat code.
I'm a little mad that they took Nolan Groves away from Yale. I was excited about him. But yeah, you're right. Just the fact that they were able to get a big man that I thought was one of the few remaining high major starting caliber big men, and they're just going to put him on their bench, or they're going to start him and play Toppin at the 4 and Watts at the 3, which would be a really interesting look as well.
Do you guys like Josiah Mosley?
I like him.
Yeah, I think that's a good fit for Texas Tech. I think that there's West Virginia has an interesting roster for me. It's kind of just we are going to bring in 4 dudes who just want to bully you, get to the basket at all costs, and Floyd, Moore, Lorient, and Obioha. And then we're just going to surround them with 2 of the best shooters in the portal in Honor Huff and Trace and Eaglestaff. So I think that could work. I think Ross Hodge can really coach. So we'll see what happens there. Utah is just I don't even know at this point. If they're planning on starting Elijah Moore in a high major conference, good luck.
I don't think that's the plan. I do not think that's the plan.
Are they planning on starting Ja'Kai Howard in a high major conference?
Correct.
I don't know if I like that much better. But I do like the Don McHenry pickup. Yeah, that's what I can say about that. Oklahoma State looks like they are tailor-made to win the NIT.
Interesting team, isn't it?
Yeah,
better.
This is an unbelievable NIT team. I like Parsifala. Obviously, we know Anthony Roy can play. He can also do some other stuff that's not as good as playing.
Not nearly.
Seems like an NIT warrior. Victorious Miller, and all of these guys are NIT warriors.
A lot of these guys kind of strike me as people who think they're the best player on the team. So I'm just kind of curious to see how that shakes out, because who's making each other better on this team. That would be a big question for me.
A couple of these guys strike me as guys that could get kicked off the team.
All right, Big Ten. You guys want to talk a little bit about the Big Ten?
Can I start here? Sam?
Yes. No.
Michigan.
Yes. I was hoping you would go there.
First of all, Dusty Bay can pair water and fire together and it'll work. But if they get Yaxel back to pair with like Mara, who like if his conditioning improves, could be one of the best players in this conference. And you add, I think Elliot Cadeau in this system is a definitive upgrade from Trey Donaldson. Like, we'll get the ball to the right people. It's just I think about like surrounding this like these guys with spacing, and like if McKenney is ready right away, and Kaysen takes a step as a shooter, and like Namari Burnett is ready, and like they have added 2 freshmen in Winters Grady and then Libbard, who I've been telling you about. If like one of those guys is ready to play like as a bench role, those are 2 of the better like pure shooters in this class.
I like this Michigan build because, again, as you said, I trust Dusty May. This is not like a typical Dusty May build. I like when they usually have like 4 guys that can handle the ball or have the big man, which I think Yaxel Lendeborg would have been like a cyborg type fit in that system. It's a shame that they're probably not going to be able to get him back because he's going to be a first-round pick, I think. But
I think they'll get him back.
Really?
Yeah, I'm starting to think they're getting.
Okay, then they're probably a top 15 team.
Yeah,
maybe even higher for me. But yeah, I'm big on an LJ Kaysen breakout. I think Morez Johnson being an experience, big within this league. Obviously, had a good season in Illinois. The Illinois fans are still pretty mad that he left. Well, you know that well, they're more mad at his character than his player leaving. Them leaving for in the conference, but like they're kind of mad in general about Morez Johnson leaving. That's a good sign when that happens. When a fan base tells you that a player is bad, Decrease the Sonico rule. But I like the Morez Johnson ad. I think, man, Will Cheddar's got to be on his 5th senior year at this point. But big to have like experienced role players back. Roddy Gale, who's not going to need to be as much as we thought he was going to need to be last year because he wasn't as much as he needed to be last year, and they were still really good. I
thought he had some good moments.
Yeah, he had good moments late in the season, bad moments early in the season. Yeah, but yeah, I love Dusty May.
Also, like I know that like Morez stuff was weird because like not only are Illinois fans very passionate, but like he had been committed to Illinois since like his sophomore year of high school. And like I just truly think that like Illinois wanted to like build their roster differently, like than what he was giving them. Like I don't think it says it. Like look at Illinois' front court, like Mirkovic, the 2 Ivicic brothers, Hummerkaus. Like that just doesn't scream Morez Johnson to you at all.
No, and that's kind of the next team that I wanted to talk about was Illinois. If this works, we can change everything we know about roster building in college basketball.
What do you mean?
Not like in terms of like where you're getting the players from.
Yes. Like
not so much like how you're building a roster.
Yeah. Just like it's just something nobody's really thought about that much outside of obviously Brad Underwood and certain coaches have been like really big on it, certain coaches not. But like if this works, it opens up a completely other way to build a successful high major roster in college basketball if you can really invest your resources into that market versus this market. Obviously, I think it'll work to an extent. I don't think they're going to be a Final Four team or anything, but I think like Petrovic, that's going to be a really good player for them. Mirkovic is going to give you something. Just obviously international guys, being able to land impact international guys. There's more of them out there that want to come to college basketball. And if they're impactful and if it works, then you'll see a lot more teams attack this strategy and try and bring in older, impactful, international European players.
We'll see what the NCAA has to say about that with, the red tape of eligibility.
I don't know what the NCAA is going to say at this point.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, but on the Illinois perspective, I think with this roster, like I think that they built a very balanced team. I think that they are going to have a different leading scorer based on every game. I think that they could have nights where Stojakovic leads them in scoring or Boswell leads them in scoring as he was playing at a really high level down the stretch. Tomislav Ivicic, I think, could solidify himself as one of the best big men in the Big Ten. He led the He led the league in threes last year from the center's position, and they're going to have 40 minutes of a stretch five on the floor at all times. And I think that's something that this staff really, really wanted. And then you pair that with Stojakovic, who is one of the elite drivers, slashers in college basketball, a huge rim rate last year, got to the free throw line a ton. I think the paint's going to be wide open for him to really, kind of work his magic at the rim. And he's kind of going from a Cal situation where they had two bigs on the floor at the same time that didn't shoot to an Illinois situation where he has two bigs on the floor at the same time who really do shoot it. And I think that could really, unlock an even better and more efficient version of himself.
Jonathan?
Yeah, I think it just the ceiling here depends on how Mirkovic and Petrovic translate in college basketball. Like, I think that Illinois probably views these guys as professional basketball players, maybe in the NBA. So, if these guys come over and, they get adjusted to, the American style right away, you could have yourself a serious Big Ten championship contender and Final Four contender.
We'll see. Yeah, no, I think they've also built in, though, if Mirkovic isn't ready yet, Ty Rodgers can play the 4, Humrickhouse can play the 4.
I think Humrickhouse should be better this year.
Agreed. Yeah, it goes back to my year.
Good shooter that had a bad shooting year,
and a bad shooting year was still 35%. So he can he shot 35% from 3 last year. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he's closer to 38-39% range. But yeah, I guess that my biggest concern maybe is just perimeter defense. Outside of Kylan Boswell, how many guys do you really trust to sit down and guard? I didn't love Stojakovic's tape defensively last year. Petrovic is really small.
He had to do a lot for them on the offensive end.
For sure. So maybe that unlocks a little bit more for him defensively. But yeah, that would be my biggest question right there as well, because, outside of Boswell, how many true sit down and guard you guys do you have on this roster? I don't know. They're going to try to win the shot quality game again, right? Nothing at the rim, no threes, take as many mid-range twos as possible. We kind of know the MO at that team. And this roster is basically built to play one of the most passive defenses in college basketball.
All right. My one team that I'm big on for next year, the team that I think is going to take the leap, Washington. I've been a Kamari Peterson fan since he was at JUCO. Wesley Yates coming back. I've been a Wesley Yates fan since he was in high school. And I'm not the biggest Lathan Somerville guy, but I think they have enough depth in that front court. Steinbach looks like a legit contributor. Jacob Ognasovic. We spoke to Lenny Acuff back in December about him. Man, we love what Ognasovic can bring from his versatility to his shooting. It's kind of, can they unlock something out of whether it's Zoom Diallo, JJ Mandaquit, Cortland Muldrew, or Bryson Tucker? Can they kind of unlock the next level out of one of those guys? And if so, we're looking at maybe not a Big Ten contender, but a Big Ten Tier 2 team.
Yeah, my question with this team is how much defense are they going to play? I think their offense is going to be pretty good. You add Peterson, Yates comes back, Ognasovic we know can play. I think it's, Lathan Somerville, how many guys in the Big Ten is he going to have an easy time guarding? So I know you Sam, we talked about the depth at that position. I'm really excited for this team. I still think Danny Sprinkle's a really good coach. What he did at Utah State was phenomenal. And I think this roster is really fun.
Yeah, it was what Jonathan said a couple weeks ago. If you're still buying Danny Sprinkle at any point at Washington, you have to buy this team, because if not, I don't know how much better the roster is going to get if it doesn't work this year.
I think Kepnang is also keeping him is a pretty big deal. If he can ever get healthy, that's a really elite rim protector that he could potentially be. Just give them some physicality on the back line, because I'm with you. Lathan Somerville as your backline anchor probably isn't the key to a really good defense. But yeah, these guards have serious juice, like Yates, and I'm with you on Peterson. My little comp that I've had for Peterson for a couple months that I've hid for a while gives me a little Zion pulling vibes. Ooh. Back in the day.
Like
the way they move in space, the way they cut angles and stuff like that. I like him. I like him a lot. So if Peterson, and again, they don't necessarily need Peterson to be a star, but if he can be a 11, 12 points a game guy with high efficiency, I think he can be a really, really helpful piece for them. And Yates is a superstar. Toward the end of the stretch last year, nobody in the Big Ten could guard him, even though USC's roster didn't really have much behind him and Des Claude.
Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Jonathan. Who are you taking?
Between the two,
Yes.
Iowa. But I will say about both of these teams, however high you are on them, you're probably still too low. Like, I think both of these teams are going to be excellent. They're under there are rosters full of under the radar players that are put together very well.
It's great that like I can now talk positively about Indiana because I like their coach. Like it's been a few years since I've said like legitimately positive things about Indiana basketball, but I like this team a lot. I think Connerway, Wilkerson, like that's a backcourt that's going to win you some games. Tucker DeVries, we know how good he is. I've been a Reed Bailey guy for a few years at Davidson, and then I mean I think they have enough depth on that bench. Enright is going to be a contributor. Sam Alexis, I think, didn't get to show out. I don't think he got to show what he everything that he can do at Florida. I think he can do a little bit more for them at this point. I don't really think I'm not really big on Nick Dorn, but like if he's your eighth man, you're probably fine. And then with Iowa, I'm like I'm gonna say dangerous things about a Bennett Sturts Alvaro Fulgaris pick and roll duo. Like those two guys are tailor made for each other. And then Hazen on the outside. That's a Mitch Mascari upgrade.
I think both of these teams are really high floor teams. I think I would be stunned if these teams miss the tournament. They look like they make sense. I will say though, I'm worried about both of these teams' interior defense. I think it's going to be a real problem. Like if your front line is Josh Harris at the 4 and Reed Bailey at the 5, I'm not sure how much resistance that is. Like Sam Alexis is going to have to be a big piece of that. I think he's going to have to play a ton. And then the same thing with Iowa. If it's Fulgaris and Manyao at the front line, that's really good at the mid-major ranks. I still have a little bit of concern at the Big Ten, but other than that, I kind of co-sign everything. I think the pieces make a ton of sense. Fulgaris's off-movement threes are going to give opposing centers trouble if they can get him cross-matched onto those centers. And then with IU, it might be a little bit mid-major heavy, but skill, shooting, size, like it kind of reminds me a little bit of like Xavier last year. And if Xavier didn't get hurt, I think they would have been a no doubt tournament team. And that's my expectation for Indiana too.
All right. To some other teams in the Big Ten. What do we think about USC? Like, so where are we there?
Yeah. I think USC is going to be one of the most improved defenses out there. I think that Chad Baker-Mazara, Rodney Rice, that combo together, I'm kind of interested to see what that looks like. I think they can play very big with Elijah Arenas. If he can get healthy as well, you could go 6'5", 6'6", Chad Baker-Mazara, 6'7". They have a weird front court. I would have liked it way more. I'm blanking on the kid who decommitted, who I love. Correct. Keontae, I love him. He hasn't committed anywhere yet. We're kind of some red flags behind the scenes, so we'll kind of see what's going on with him there. But I don't like Gabe Dines, but I love Jacob Kofi. So I think if they could play Jacob Kofi at the 5, I could see USC being a really, really interesting team. But it's kind of a weird chemistry experiment too.
I still don't know why they took Ezra Asar. Like there was no need to do that.
I think it's just physicality. I think you could look
at Dickerson is physical enough.
I get it, but I feel like if I was looking at this group, it's like, do we have a half-court offensive guy that can go get us a bucket in a moment? I think that was maybe more the calculus behind Asar, because we can talk bad about Asar or whatever, but down the stretch, he was 20 and 12 in the Big 12 last year. That's not nothing. So I'm with you. I don't think he has a few too many flaws in his games for my liking, and maybe a healthy Terrence Williams can jump him as that stretch 4 that actually makes threes. But I think that he just adds something a little bit different than the rest of that front court mix. Because I don't know if you can throw the ball to Kofi yet and get a bucket. I don't think you can throw the ball to T. Will and get a bucket yet. Gabe Dines, you cannot throw him the basketball. Jaden Brown Allen, same deal.
Yeah, I'm so glad they got Jordan Marsh though, because how many point guards are there available in the portal?
Not many.
I feel like this year there were fewer point guards in the portal than any other position, and Jordan Marsh is a legitimate point guard that can really. I don't know how much he'll defend, but I think this team is going to be fine defensively with that front court. if they can play.
I think they're just going to play Chad Baker-Mazar at the 1 a lot. And I think his pick and roll reps are going to jump. He had like 130 of those, I think, last year at Auburn. I have to double check that number. I think that they're going to try to play him as a jumbo playmaker. And look, that's what they paid him to do. Like, if you're going to pay him that much, that's what you have to use him to.
Yeah, but I also like getting Jordan Marsh because I think that's a legitimate point guard. There are not very many of them in the portal, and they got one. They got one late after their guy left. Like, that's hard to do.
This roster just feels way more Eric Musselman than last year's.
All right.
Way more talented. Way more talented.
Speaking of point guards in the portal, arguably the best one was Donovan Dent at UCLA. I can't tell if I'm in on this roster or not. I'm in on Bilodeau and Daly. I'm in on Dent. I'm not really in on anything else. Maybe Jamar Brown, but like maybe Trent Perry. But like, who's playing as a 2-guard for this team?
If Trent Perry can play the 2, I'm kind of in on this team.
Like, is Sky Clark a 2-guard? Like, what do we think? Is Xavier Booker a Big Ten caliber 5-man? If not, what do they do at the 5? Like, I think there's a lot of questions here, and I don't know if Mick Cronin over like last year or two has earned the benefit of the doubt in that sense, but he's earned it over the course of his career, obviously. I think his team will be good. I don't think they'll be great.
I don't understand the top 5 buzz with this team at all. Like, at all. Like, does this team look like a Mick Cronin team? Does this team look like it's going to crush you on the boards? Does this team look like it's going to be a really vicious defensive team? Like, I don't know if we can necessarily say that. Like, who's starting at the 3? Like, are they going to go big with Eric Daly at the 3, Bilodeau at the 4, Xavier Booker at the 5? Like, I can talk myself into the type of, I think the stat I looked up was that UCLA averaged just 10 points per game in transition last year, which was like 17th out of the 18 Big Ten teams. And Dent scored 7 points in transition himself, which was number 1 in all of college basketball. So he's going to really raise their floor, I think, offensively. And they have a lot of spot up shooting around it. Like, Daly shot over 35% from 3. Bilodeau can really knock down catch and shoot threes. Sky Clark was over 40% on catch and shoot threes last year. Booker, in theory, can do the same as well. So
the kid they took from UMKC can really shoot, right?
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. I would be remiss not to bring up Perry and then your boy Jamar Brown. But yeah, like they can really shoot it. And so I like that in theory around Dent, but I'm just really worried about the interior defense again. And so I think they're a top 25 team-ish if things go right, but I don't see top 5 here at all.
All right. Anyone else with anything on the Big Ten before we go Big East?
Yes. Rutgers. Oh my God. Penn State. Oh my God. And then Oregon. Oregon is one good 3 away from being maybe my pick to win this league. I think that Oregon has a chance to be really, really good if they get Nate Biddle back to join alongside Jackson Shelstad, who's awesome. Those two cut together is big time. What's up?
You're a TK Simpkins guy?
Not a big TK Simpkins guy, but I do think he needs to have – I think if they could get a big-time 3 here, like a Jameer Watkins, like I think they should absolutely be in the Darian Williams sweepstakes. You get one of those guys here at the 3, I really like the build of this team with KJ Evans at the 4 because, their net rating – Oregon's net rating last year with KJ Evans, Nate Biddle, and Jackson Shelstad on the floor was like 99th percentile nationally. They were phenomenal. And I think that that trio needs to play a ton this year. Like Dana Altman has to just unleash the beast there.
I'm right. You're right. I'm so concerned about Penn State without Yannick Conan Niederhauser. Like that might be like outside the top 200 team.
It sucks because that was a great eval by them. Unbelievable eval.
Yeah.
This league just like once again feels like there is so many potential like top 30, 25 teams.
Totally. I'm doing my Big Ten tiers right now. Like I'm going to try to kind of work that out. And it's just like, it's wild how many are like tier 2, like just really, really good, solid rosters.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The Big East, it's not great for the league right now. It does not feel as good as it has been. And it already hasn't been as good as it should have been. But the team to start with is the team that's been getting all the buzz all off season, St. John's. Isaac, what do you think about what St. John's did this offseason? Are you buying St. John's as a top 3, top 2 team in the country? Are you a little more reserved on that? Because that's kind of what the talk has been on the Johnnies.
Yeah, no, I like this team. I think this team's going to be really, really good. I'm not concerned about the point guard stuff at all. I think Bryce Hopkins is going to probably be their primary initiator in half-court settings. And I think Hopkins, if he can get healthy, really changes the calculus of this team. I think they can use him as inverted screens. I think they can go big on big pick and rolls. I think they go big on small pick and rolls. They can post him up. They can mid-post ISOs. Like, you can do a lot with him offensively. And he's only played 4 games since New Year's Day in 2024. So, like, that's terrifying. But if a healthy version of him, I think really gives them a chance, because Josan Sanin, pound for pound, as good of a shooter as there is in the country. I think he can be a big-time player for them. Osiah Sellers, I like him as a role player. Ian Jackson, I think, is going to dominate in transition, kind of like what they do. I think they're going to play fast. So, and obviously Zuby's Zuby. Like, maybe I still think it was an absolute crime that he didn't get Big East Defensive Player of the Year. I thought he was the best defender on the best defensive team last year. So, yeah, I think this team is good. My hot take is I still like UConn a little bit more than St. John's right now, but I think St. John's is going to be in fine shape. And they again, I'm going to be really buying the teams that can play a lot of different ways, and St. John's certainly can.
Yeah, I think I get that. The one place where I kind of have concern with St. John's is like, what is this backcourt defense going to look like? Last year, I thought. Yes, exactly. I'll get there. The reason why they were so great last year is because their backcourt guarded absolutely everybody. Now, with Pitino, I'm not going to doubt that it's going to be a top 25 defense. I just think that the reason why they were so great last year is because they were just completely undrive to the rim on their guards the ball. Like, you couldn't get past their guards. I think you can get past their guards this year, and it's going to be a lot easier to get to Zuby in the front court. So they were top 15 on KenPom last year. I don't think they moved significantly up from there, but I think they did enough to get to that spot.
Agreed. I agree with that. Yeah, and I think they're going to probably play Dylan Mitchell, Bryce Hopkins, and Zuby together a lot, just because
that would be a really good defensive lineup.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I think those three are actually going to play a lot more together than maybe we think. Just because just like what they prioritize, what they like to be as a switchy team, and I think you can switch a lot more when Mitchell and Zuby are on the floor together, without sacrificing that backline rim protection. And this is a bet on Rick basically being like, if you're going to play for me, you are going to play balls to the wall defense. And like, that's just the expectation. And, Ian Jackson, Josan Sanin, the talent there is off the charts. And I think the big deal too with them too, like, they were last year outside the top 200 in half court offense, and they were still a top 15 on KenPom. Like, this group offensively will not be outside the top 200 on half-court offense, or something seriously went really, really wrong.
You alluded to it. You like UConn better. Give me the pitch.
I think the thing with UConn is they have continuity. They have way better improved size. I'm a big fan of Silas Demery at the point of attack. I think now you can go with Demery at 6'5", Solo Ball 6'4", Jalen Stewart 6'7", Caravan 6'8", Terrace Reed 6'10". That perimeter size, I think, really plays. I think Demery is a better fit for what they were trying to do with their point guard play. I thought their point guard play killed them last year with Diarra and Mahaney, and Demery is going to be a big upgrade. And then again, I'm really kind of going back to like that ability to play multiple different ways. They can play Demery at the 2. They can bring Malachi Smith in as a changeup at the 1. Like, they can play Solo Ball as like an off movement sniper. Like, Jalen Stewart and Jaden Ross are really good, like, long-term pieces that are going to get better. Braylon Mullins can really shoot it too. Like, I just feel like they have so many different options and optionability and guys that I trust in this rotation. And yeah, I was selling UConn heading into last year, and this year I'm kind of buying them again as a big bounce back candidate.
I agree. I like UConn a lot. I would probably say they would be my Big East favorite at the moment.
Yep.
I think Dan Hurley saw what went wrong last year, attacked it. And I'm also like so in on Jalen Stewart for this year. Like, I said last year that he could be a draft pick this year. Now, like, I am super convinced he's going to be a draft pick next year. Like, Jalen Stewart is going to have a huge year for UConn. And I love Braylon Mullins, especially as like an off-bench shooter. for UConn, who can also score in different ways. Solo Ball might be the best shooter in college basketball. Caravan could also end up being the best shooter in college basketball if he finds his stroke again. I am a little bit concerned about depth at the 5. UConn has had 2 bigs the last couple of years. I don't think they have 2 big-time bigs. Maybe Eric Ravi's better than I think. Maybe Dwayne Karoma comes in and plays a little bit. I did not expect to be name-dropping a Lemoyne legend on the transfer portal talk, but here we are. Actually, I might mention AJ Dantzler on my mid-major gets that I like, but whatever. I like UConn a lot. Probably a top 10, top 12 team for me coming into the year. St. John's probably right in that conversation as well. But outside of those 2 teams in the Big East, is there anybody that stands out to you that you really like, Jonathan or Isaac? Either of you can jump in.
Jonathan, take it first while I look through the rosters because nothing pops off the top of my head.
If Georgetown kept Sorber, man,
Yeah.
I don't know. I still think they could be good if Halifanua takes a leap and Iwuchukwu is a fine backup big. Gives you some nice size off the bench. If they just Creighton is very weird to me. Very strange. I think I like a lot of the pieces they added individually, but Sam, we talked about how good is this interior defense going to be?
Nah, it's not going to be good.
Freeman's athletic, but I don't think he's a good defender.
He doesn't defend. They were one of the worst defensive teams that was one of the worst defensive high major teams on interior I've ever seen, and he was the rim protector for that. I think
their guards should be able to really score.
Yeah. The team that kind of sticks out to me is I think they're a little bit improved is Butler.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to bring them up too.
I like Jalen Jackson. I think Michael Ajayi is good, but I don't think anything in that front. I don't think Drayton Jones or Johan Traore are high major players. I don't know if Jamie Kaiser is going to be all that good. I don't know what. I think they're better. But what does better mean?
I think Jalen Jackson can really play, and I think
Jalen Jackson can average 18 a game.
Jackson and Bizjack together are nice. I think they're really nice, and then I think Ajayi is as a kind of a buy low, post hype sleeper type of guy. Remember he was at the NBA draft combine last year. People forget about that. He was definitely there and looked the part. So I think in the Big East, where no offense to the Big East, but I think the athleticism gap is absolutely noticeable for some teams compared to others. And you saw that last year with St. John's, where they were just overwhelmed teams with athleticism. And then when they play the SEC, it's just they look like an SEC team. I think Ajayi's athleticism could pop in this league a little bit more.
I would agree. I really wanted to say Seton Hall was going to be good after they got Bud Clark, but nope, that's not that team's not going to be any good.
Ran out of money.
Ran out of money. Gave Bud Clark six Eagles jerseys and a Philly cheesesteak.
They gave him a building, pretty much.
Yeah.
What do you think of Providence?
I like a couple of the guys, but I don't think they have any sort of playmaking. I don't think they have much. I don't think the coach is very good either right now. I don't think there's not a lot to believe in with Kim English, and there's nobody on this team that I trust to make a play for somebody else. As good as Jason Edwards is, he's always played with other guards that can handle the ball. I don't really think Jalen Sellers is great. I don't think Corey Floyd's great. I don't think Duncan Powell is. I mean, Duncan Powell's good. Is he great? And then there's just I don't trust Kim English to elevate this roster to the point that he would need to make it a good roster. But I think there's some intriguing pieces. And then you move and you look at Marquette, where there's nobody in the league that I would trust more to elevate this roster than Shaka Smart, where they're going to find their way into the NCAA tournament, even though this roster is not all that great right now.
Dude, I don't even think that this roster's bad.
I think we might have just talked down on it so much to the point where
I actually think Sean Jones is good, and I thought the entire idea with Marquette last year is I thought like they were going to get him, like maybe get him back at some point, and they just never did. Like he's a legit good ball handler, fast, and like they had nobody to relieve pressure off of Cam Jones at all. And I think you can bet on a couple of these guys getting a lot better because that's just like what Marquette does.
I trust him. Yeah, I do. I think I also just like the idea of like a Ben Gold, Royce Parr in front court. I think both those guys, like you could probably talk me into them leading the Big East in threes from a front court. I think we'll see how that kind of coalesces there. But
probably,
yeah. I mean, even high major wise, like you could both those guys together. Like, could they hit 73s next year? 65 threes? That's not crazy combined.
I think you look at Villanova, Bryce Lindsey. I liked that ad. I think Matt Hodge is going to be good.
Yep.
But the rest of this roster really lacks for me.
A Caden Lewis makes sense.
Caden Lewis makes sense. I think he's probably a year away from being what they would need him to be to make the NCAA tournament with this roster. And I'm not a Zion Stanford guy, and I haven't been a Zion Stanford guy. But that's kind of the Big East. Unless you have anything on DePaul.
Not a ton on DePaul. I thought the smart thing with DePaul was just keeping Layden Blocker. I think again the year 2 transfer jump with him will be really good for him. And then they also kept CJ Gunn and they also kept NJ Benson. So it's like you can see the vision there. Caleb Banks is talented. Xavier, mid-majory, feels very mid-majory. I like Trey Carroll in theory. I think Malik Moore is a stud. That's my opinion on him offensively. I think he's going to translate up just fine offensively. We'll see what it is defensively. Pizzato, big bet on Pizzato, like to get healthy and get rolling because I don't know. I mean, if you watch the right Pizzato game, you could tell me that he's all Big East type of caliber player next year. You watch the wrong Pizzato game and you're like, are we sure he's a high major player? So like it's kind of a tough angle.
Yeah, I'm like not like if this team's best players are going to be the the 2 best players from like bad Valley teams, like I'm probably out on them.
Yeah, probably good.
All right.
Moore's good though. I mean, I think Malik Moore's like 6'5", kind of really smooth score.
All right, let's talk ACC. A couple teams that I want to get into here before we go on to some mid-major, just like toss-ups. NC State, Miami, North Carolina, Louisville, Duke. Those are kind of, and a little bit of Clemson. Those are kind of the teams that I want to discuss here. And also probably Virginia. But let's start with NC State. New coach, making a lot of waves. New general manager, Andrew Slater, who I'm not sure you could have made a better hire as a general manager than Andrew Slater. He was built for that job. But what do we think of this roster, especially if they could add PJ Haggerty? We know they're in on Darian Williams too.
Top 25 team. If they get one of those guys, I think defensively you can talk yourself into it with their triple switching that they do. I think the rim protection should be good with Paul Mbaya, the international freshman they brought over. But Arsenault can really guard multiple positions. Matthew Abel, I have to dig into more of my freshman research, but the early stuff I've watched from him is kind of encouraging. Kadir Copeland, like they're big. Yeah, they're big. Trey Holloman can really guard at the point of attack. Like I think this defensively, it would be there. And then you throw in a superstar like PJ Haggerty, who I think is just going to be like a plug and play 18 a game. I'm talking myself into NC State being pretty solid in year 1.
Yeah,
Miami with Trey Donaldson, Drew Washington, Shelton Henderson, Malik Redu, and Asude. Not sure how many 5s there are going to be in the ACC better than that. I'm a big Trey Donaldson guy. I liked him a lot at Michigan. I think that Malik Redu playing at the 4 in this spot. There might not be a lot of shooting in this. There's not going to be any shooting in this front court, but I think Drew Washington is going to really defend. Shelton Henderson is going to get you some good minutes as well. I think they could use 1 or 2 more pieces. They're not. I hope they're not done. But I think for a first roster for Jay Lucas, especially knowing that he was the defensive coordinator for those Duke teams, I think they're going to defend a lot. And then to Duke, they didn't really bring in much in the portal, but they were able to. I mean, obviously Cedric Coward, who's not going to be playing for them next year, most likely at this point, considering how well he played at the Combine. But you look at Caden Boozer, Caleb Foster as a point as a point guard duo. Cam Boozer in the front court. Gongba's back. Malik Brown's back. Kamani has gotten some hype. They'll be good enough for sure. We'll talk more about Duke in the ACC preview and in our Duke preview that we're going to do over the offseason because we don't really have much time to discuss them in this. I like the Carter Welling pickup for Clemson. I think that's the Carter Welling and Nick Davison is the type of front court that Clemson can thrive with. I like both of those guys.
A little too white for me, but yeah, they're good. RJ Godfrey coming back too is big.
Yeah.
And then,
I think Dylan Hunter could be
talk about North Carolina. What do we think of North Carolina, Jonathan?
I don't know yet. Like, I keep going back and forth on this team. Like, there's just so many possibilities with them. Henry Vasar is very good.
Very good.
I think that's going to be their best player.
If Seth Trimble doesn't take a leap, I don't know what kind of guard production they're getting.
I mean, I don't understand the Kyan Evans addition. Like, I don't understand why Kyan Evans was the guy they targeted. Like, he can really shoot it and play, but like he just hasn't played in many ball screens. And
if he's going to work there, they have to like dramatically change what they do offensively.
Yeah. And do we have any faith that they're going to do that?
No,
I don't.
none.
So, again, it's hard to judge them because they really do need a three. And they thought Andrei Stojakovic could be that potential guy. I think there's a Euro in play for them too that could maybe change it a little bit. But Jonathan Powell, the transfer from West Virginia, nice player off the bench as an extra shooter. But yeah, I'm not really super enthused with this roster. I thought Drake Powell being on this team would have been huge, and maybe he makes a different decision here down the stretch, because if it was Trimble and Powell and Drake Powell and Henry Visar, I would be really in on that defense because that's three elite defenders at three different areas of the floor. But yeah, losing him just stings. And the way he went out by basically being like, I don't think the development I was getting at UNC was going to help me get to the league, insinuating that is fair. And also the truth hurts.
Yeah. Anyone else in the ACC that we wanted to get into? Virginia. I love the fact that they're able to get Malik Thomas. I'm big. I've heard good things about the German big man, Grunlow. Good first-year roster for Ryan Odom.
Devin Tillis, I think, is going to be a nice player for them. As a really nice player. The guards, we'll see. I think Dallin Hall can really shoot it. Jakari White can shoot it and guard in theory. I think Sam Lewis is an interesting type of player out of Toledo as well. I called him Diet Josh Dix, just a little bit of like a guy that can really fill it up from multiple different areas. But I don't know how twitchy they are in that backcourt outside of Malik. Malik is nasty. Malik is nasty. And
Malik Thomas could lead the ACC in scoring.
Malik is a special scorer, can really put that ball through the hoop. And they feel like a piece or two away. But I'm kind of reserving my Virginia thoughts until they actually get the roster finalized, because if they do, I think we're talking about this team like pulling a Louisville, where they go from one of the worst teams in the league to being one of the best. Like, this roster could be really, really good.
And speaking of Louisville,
real quick,
that's a lot of shooting.
Yeah.
Adrian Woolley, Ryan Conwell, Isaac McNeely as a portal haul.
And like
Mikal Brown Jr., this is going to be one of the best backcourts in the country if they can figure out like who to play when.
I don't know if there's like a wrong answer though either.
Agreed.
Can SMU and Stanford like swap coaches? I'd be like incredibly in on SMU if Kyle Smith was coaching them.
I felt like Jaron Pierre picking SMU was like just perfect. Perfect. Like, shot chucker goes to where shot chucker can shot chuck. It's like, that's perfect. Everybody will be happy with that marriage. I think. I don't think they're going to.
What do you think about Syracuse?
Okay, Syracuse thoughts. Nate George is a massive upgrade talent-wise, so that certainly helps. I'm a little scared about George and Starling together, but I think I don't think it's a ton of shooting, but I think they needed it from just a pure raw talent standpoint. This team strikes me as like maybe a little bit of your turn, my turn between Starling and George, and that could get a little scary. But I think Tyler Betsy as a buy low option makes sense. I think, I think Nate Kings as a stretch the floor guy is kind of what they needed. William Kyle I think he can guard multiple different ways. I think he's going to play really hard. He's going to give them some offensive rebounding. He's not going to be, the hole that there was at times last year at the 5 when they were trotting out Eddie Lampkin, and then you kind of see what happens with Donnie Freeman. So talent's better, but we'll go from there.
All right.
This team's talent is nuts for a team that's going to be projected like Ken Pom top 70.
Yeah.
All right. Mid-majors, quickly. Jonathan's going to go.
I'm so sorry, but I have got to dip.
Yeah, please.
You've
given us more time than I thought.
You're good. We're just gonna wrap up here. So
good to see you all. Have fun with the mid majors. I will see you next time.
Thanks, Isaac.
Honestly, we might do mid majors next time, Jonathan.
You know what? Let's, because I gotta run soon too, and I don't
want to take us home.
What'd you say?
I just want to say the A10 is back until it gets 2 bids.
Has never left.
The A10 is going to be back in terms of preseason projections, and then it's going to be over by November 27th. Jonathan, take us home.
If you came to hear about Tyler Self and where he's working, you came to the right place. If you came to hear Isaac talk once again about Ezra Asar, you came to the right place. And if you came to hear about the latest happenings with Caleb Grill, you came to the right place. This has been Season 6, Episode 4 of Brackets, Bubbles, and Bid Stealers. Transfer Portal Talk. We'll see you next time.